Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
Here's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to The Big Show. Josh McCown here, the illustrious John Edwin. It is always great to be on The Big Show with you, buddy.
Josh, it's a privilege and an honor to serve our listeners alongside of you every single week. And today we interviewed a good friend of ours, Igor Avratiner.
Yeah, Avratiner. Yeah, of course. That's how you always say it, right? Avratiner. Igor, we love him. He is a powerhouse, John.
He is. He came into this country when he was young from Russia, and he dropped out of school. Actually, and a judge allowed him to do that.
Yeah, what a crazy story.
As he was telemarketing, and then he's buying 25 to 30 homes and selling 25 to 30 homes a year himself. And he teaches us, we get into a case study, thank you, Josh, where he teaches us how he bought a home for $5,000.
Yeah, $5,000. Put your money on it, baby. You could do it too, if you have the ability to pivot like this guy. And if you have, I would say you and I helped me learn today about how the actual contracting works to make something that creative come to fruition. So if you're curious about how you could add more real estate, either actively like Igor or passively, this is a game-changing episode. You're going to love it.
Let's go.
So, John, I am very excited to have Igor here. Thank you for getting this guy. As a matter of fact, I hear he's a business partner of yours.
Igor Avratiner is my business partner. We just launched ECS, which is an asbestos abatement company. So if you guys have any connections, need asbestos removed in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, contact me and or Igor. Igor, it's great to have you on the show. Give our listeners a little background on who you are.
Hey, it's great to be here. I'm excited. I'm Igor Avratiner. I am a full-time house flipper, rental property owner in Philadelphia. I've been doing real estate probably since around 2007.
Wow. So Igor, give us a little background. So you're from Russia, right? You came over when you were 2. And then where'd you go to school in Philadelphia? What got you into real estate? Give us some of that juicy stuff.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So I came here when I was 2. Like you said, that's pretty crazy because my mom and dad divorced in Russia. My dad didn't want to go. My mom did. She came as a single mom. So she raised me here. Fast forward till I'm in high school age. I did pretty well in school. I started at Central High School, which is like a pretty good
smart.
school.
Very smart.
I that's what I thought, and I was smart. I was a big fish in a small pond in the elementary school. But when I got to Central, it was a bigger pond. I was a small fish, and that was a rough transition. So I actually started like skipping school, and I wound up in truancy court, and they sent me away to a boot camp where kids were there who were kind of like one step before like maybe a juvenile jail system. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. That time I spent there really kind of set me straight, taught me discipline. But ultimately, it led to me dropping out of high school. And what I mean by that,
The best thing that ever happened to me. And then I dropped out of high school. Wait a second. By the way, I'm loving this story, but you really dropped out after that wonderful life-changing experience?
it wasn't that easy because I was still in the court system, so I had to get that approved by the court. The court actually allowed me to drop out at the age of 17.
Wow.
And the reason they did that was I started working part-time. My mom was still, single mom. She had actually gotten divorced again, and she was a social worker. We didn't have a lot of resources, and so I wanted a Nextel phone. Do you guys remember the Nextel phones, like the church?
The two-way pager thingy? Yeah. Oh, yeah. The walkie-talkie, I think.
So I was about 16 at the time, and like the best one was like close to $500. And, there was no way I was going to be able to afford it without working. So I went to work as a telemarketer. As a telemarketer, I was working hourly. Ultimately, I got a job, kind of like a step up job. I was able to afford the next job, but I was doing so good at this job. I brought my check, which was like $1,200 and some dollars. I remember it was like the first deal we closed. It was a mortgage company. And I said to the judge, I said, Judge, I want to drop out of school. I'm not interested in what they're teaching in school. I want to go make money, right? This is what I want to do. Please let me drop out. And I brought the check, my first check, and the judge looked at me and he looked at my mom and he's like, all right. He's like, you can drop out. So I dropped out. Fast forward till I'm like 18, and I was like the manager of that company. I was making probably double what my mom was making as a social worker. And yeah, that's kind of how I started in my career, really working. Yeah.
That's revolutionary. Now, we wanted to get you on the big show to talk about all the things you've learned in the world of deal making, real estate, how to deploy some capital, whether you're passive or active. We wanted to ask you all that cool stuff, but your gift must have been communication, because you're saying you were in the world of cold calling and telemarketing and or selling. So that's where you began your career, which is part of my thesis that if you want to be a business owner, at the core of it is you have to be able to present, communicate, and persuade. So makes a lot of sense that you're now a very successful business owner. But go back, how many years did you do that work? How long did that last?
So that was from 2004 to 2008. If you guys remember 2008, everything kind of tanked in the real estate and mortgage business. So yeah.
So what did you pivot to?
I went to work for a small company, and then I went to work for Prudential. I got licensed. I was interested in being like in the financial advising business, insurance business. Ultimately, that didn't work out so well. I mean, it was okay, but I realized it wasn't for me, and I went to go work for a bank. So I worked in banking for about 10 years after that, as I kind of build up my rental portfolio.
Oh, so you got started on real estate. Did you you got started while not being in professional real estate? So were you caught by the bug while you were a mortgage broker, mortgage salesperson? Did you already start buying things pre-08?
I did. My first house I bought when I was 19 years old, and it was a terrible investment. Yeah, so I bought it right in 2007, right at the top of everything. The house was like 400 miles away from my house. I had no idea what was going on. Ultimately, that was a bad investment, but it was a really good education, right? I kind of paid for the education.
Dang, dude. Okay, and then were you selling? Did you use one of those no documentation mortgages so that you didn't need to prove your income?
And I didn't even get one of those. I had to prove everything, even at that time, right? I really got the short end of the stick. But no, it was an FHA. It was some kind of like first-time home buyer loan.
That's good.
Incredible.
Awesome way to get started, though. Too bad it didn't work out, but it sounds like it put you on the right path.
Yeah, yeah. And then when did you purchase the franchise, the We Buy Homes? Because actually tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll ask that question.
Yeah, so I am the licensee for something called WeBuyHouses.com for all of Philadelphia County and City of Philadelphia. And pretty much that's a kind of like a business where I'm recycling houses, right? People don't need the house anymore. The house maybe needs some love, or there's various circumstances, and we offer a solution. We offer an option for people to sell it as is quickly. I take great pride in delivering on whatever we promise. That's kind of our value proposition in the market. Whatever we say we're going to do, we do. It's very important. So, but that business, prior to that, I was doing a similar kind of business with a partner from about 2016, and I wanted to grow. And the partner just, we kind of were in different, you know what I mean? Everybody had a different idea. And ultimately in 2020, I made the decision to go with the larger licensing to kind of grow the business.
And just for clarification, is it We Buy Ugly Houses or We Buy Houses?
Good question. It's WeBuyHouses.com, which is different from We Buy Ugly Houses.
And it was an available franchise or a new franchise? Like, did someone sell you this franchise, or did you buy it from the original franchisor?
No, it was from the directly from, so it's a licensing agreement, really. It's different than a franchise, which is we buy ugly houses is I believe a franchise. And I did talk to them too. Ultimately, I went with these guys, and Philadelphia was open at the time as a territory.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard of the different brand. And do they bring you leads? Let's while we drill in on this a little bit. I want to break this down, John, but you can interrupt me. Break it down a little bit more about what the licensing does and what are the different ways. When people hear your business, some people hear house flipper, some people hear you need investors, some people hear I could sell my house to you. But my point is, what does the real estate the licensing company, like, what's the value of owning that license? What do they do for you?
Yeah, there's the value. There's definitely some leads, right? People,
Okay.
it's got good ranking in Google, good domain name. We have the branding, right? And there's a large kind of network. I think there's about 200 of us across the country. So we have conferences. We share information, best practices. There's also support. There's some marketing partnerships at the national level. So it's um it's like that, but you do have to understand the business, right? So going into it without knowing the business, there's not a franchise kind of training program or a specific tools that you have to use. You kind of have to start from something.
And so the deal flow, do you have to split it with anybody because it's not a franchise? Like, how does that work? Or franchise type of fees?
No, there aren't, and that's one of the reasons I ultimately decided, this was the right option for me. So there aren't fees, but there's like a flat licensing fee and things like that.
Got it. And is that licensing fee? Do you have to pay that annually? Was it a one-time upfront type of thing? How did that work?
Both. There was a kind of like a buy-in, and then there's an ongoing monthly, which just varies based on the territory. They come up with it based on the size of the county and things like that.
It's awesome. And then how do you get your financing? Do you personally take these deals down yourself? Do you feed them out? Do you wholesale? Like, where, or do you do all of them? Like, kind of run us through that.
So I'm not really wholesaling much, but so mostly the deal is going to be purchased, renovated, and sold, like in a retail situation, sold. Potentially seller financing to people. Me selling as the seller, or kept as a rental.
Okay. Let's can we use a little case study, because this is, awesome that you
I
had.
love
You
the
must
case
have,
studies, Josh. I
yeah,
knew it was coming.
this must have been like, how many deals have you done or seen transact, Igor? If you take a guess.
Definitely over 100. I mean, I don't know exactly, but yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the typical person buys 2 to 3 houses in their life, maybe a few more. And you think on scale, you don't ever really get traction as a regular home buyer, and you don't build an expertise. But you have seen 100 deals. So talk to me about maybe one. Can you grab one from your brain, your archives, and say, here's a deal I bought. It looked like this. I paid this much. Here's how I financed it. Here's what I did with it.
Yeah. Let me give you. I've got. There's so many interesting ones. One that pops to mind has a lot of parts, so it might be interesting to talk about and break it down. So we bought a house in Northeast Philadelphia, and the situation was that the seller had bought this house many years ago. Ultimately, moved out of state. His mom was living in the house. I believe his mom either passed away or also moved, and another relative moved in. Okay, but it's in the seller's name. The mortgage is, in the seller's name, and the relative who's there is supposed to be paying the mortgage, keeping up with the taxes, things like that. The relative was not, and on top of that, the relative had built a garage that encroached on the neighbor's property. Ultimately, got sued. So not only there was a mortgage not being paid, all these other things. There was $20,000 water bill, $25,000 judgment from this garage, all these different things. And the family member wouldn't, he tried to sell with the realtor. The family member wouldn't let anybody come in for showings. They didn't have a good relationship. So what we wound up doing is buying that house. A popular term is subject to, but really what we're doing is we took exception on our title policy. We took exception to a mortgage, a judgment, water, all this stuff. And I think it was like 90 or 100,000. It was pretty much whatever the house was worth, maybe even more than what the house was worth.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. But to get the closing, the amount that it cost was maybe like $4,000 or $5,000, right? Like from the company. Mhm.
Time out, just because I'm lost a little bit. Meaning, first of all, what an interesting kind of cadre of problems, which is what you're great at, right? But how did you find out about it? Did the original homeowner call you, or did you look at a past due mortgage report?
Most of our advertising is kind of like people call us,
Okay.
So we're putting out information and people respond to it typically.
Okay. Seller contacts you. You dig in. As soon as you hear all those crazy scenarios, you actually start thinking this might work, right? Most people think this is not worth it, but for a guy like you think there's something here, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but in this case, it worked out okay.
And then you said something, you got to the point where you said the number, let's call it $90,000 worth of problems, might have been more than it was worth, but you only needed to come up with $5,000. We don't understand that math. How does that math work? That you only needed $5,000.
So typically when you buy a house, if there's anything owed, like a mortgage, that gets paid off at closing.
Right.
What we did in this case is we said, we're going to buy it, and we know all this stuff is there. We're going to take the house with all these problems. We're not going to pay them off at closing. We're just going to take it. We know there's issues on the title, and we're going to buy it subject to those things.
Okay. Now, good question, Josh, because it's going to lead to the next question is, how are you able to do that with a title company getting title insurance? Or did you do a quitclaim deed?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, you could just take a deed and record the deed at City Hall. But no, we actually wanted to know what it was. So we ran a title search. We wanted to know what we were getting into and if it's going to be worth it or not. And the way to talk to a title company about it, you have to say to them, I want to take exception on my title policy. When you say it to them like that, they'll understand. There might be some title companies that'll tell you, no, you can't take exception to a mortgage. But when you tell them I'm taking exception, you're kind of saying, look, I know this is my problem. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Let's just close the deal.
So but that still leads me, can you still buy title insurance when you're taking exception?
Yeah, so you're getting a title policy, except on these 5 things. So you're acknowledging that I know these things are there. I know I'm not insured for this, but for anything else, it's covered.
Now, and again, John, you've done 50 plus transactions of houses. I have not. What I'm hearing that's curious, because I'm the third party listener who's like, I've heard some of this. I don't get it. When you pay that $5,000 and you give it to the old owner and you talk to your title company and get this insurance policy, are you the owner of the property yet? And
Yeah, because
there's something called the deed, right? So you have title insurance and you have the deed. Is your name now on that? Or is there something you have to do before your name gets on that?
no, the deed gets recorded. So, we had a closing just like any other house sale. The seller signs the deed over. The title company is going to take that deed and record it. So all that happened. The only difference was, we knew that there were judgments, mortgages. We knew there were things against the house, obligations. And we knew that the title company wasn't covering us for these things. But everything else, worked out the same way.
And the family has to have their name on that mortgage still. That's the other thing. So Jim took a mortgage out for $50,000. You cut a deal with Jim, but Jim still owes First American Bank $50,000 still, right?
Exactly. And so it's really important for the seller to understand whoever they're dealing with is gonna actually pay the mortgage, which we certainly are. So I'm paying the mortgage. It's in the seller's name, and it's been like that for a few years now, and it's been no problem.
Well, that's kind of revolutionary to 99.9% of the country, except for those people that are deep into this type of, let's call it creative finance, creative acquisition. And I love this point. I've never heard the term exception on title. So then you get a title policy minus those 5 problems, and you get a deed. And the bank that has $50,000 owed on the house if you were to stop paying on that mortgage, what happens then?
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
They foreclose.
They could foreclose. Yeah. So it goes into default and they could foreclose.
So they're still collateralized. So in a way, as long as they make money and they're collateralized, in a way they're comfortable because they probably still have the other guy's personal guarantee too.
They do. And it's still on title. It's not like, the mortgage gets canceled or anything like that. The mortgage is still there. Now, they probably have the right to say, hey, this deed was transferred. You guys didn't pay me off. They can call it due. I've done a number of transactions like this. That's never happened. And I used to work for a bank. I mean, I don't know that it's even on the bank's kind of radar. They kind of look for payment and escrow and these kind of things, deed transfers. I'm not sure there's like a department, somebody's sitting there, looking for.
It's only going to send a flag if it's not paid, right?
And at closing, was it paid to date, the mortgage, or did you catch them up at closing?
That was the $4 or $5 grand. We had to pay it. We had to catch it up. The
family who sold the house got zero.
He got a nominal amount of money just because there wasn't equity there. Right. But the seller was actually thrilled, and so
he was.
The people living there, the estranged kind of family members. And I've done this a number of times. My approach was to knock on the door, go talk to them. And it was difficult. They didn't want to talk to me at first. Again, I'm associated with the seller who they don't have a good relationship with. They were technically, you could say, squatters, right? There was no lease agreement. And if you know anything about Philadelphia, it's not that easy to remove a squatter once they're established as such. And we made a relationship. We made contact. Ultimately, they turned into a tenant. And they're still there today. Yeah. And they've never missed a payment. Yep. They've never missed a payment. So here's how the deal kind of worked out. So that was squared away, right? Turned them into a tenant. Didn't have to really do too many repairs or anything like that. They're already living in the house. With the water department and some of these other obligations went on a payment plan, right? So it's like cheap financing, right? And ultimately the tenant is paying the mortgage. The water, it was probably like 20 grand. It's probably down to like a couple $1,000 at this point, right? So there's equity been built up at this point. There were some repairs ultimately done at the house. There was actually, unfortunately, there was a small fire at the house, which was repaired, and the tenant's still living in there. She was able to, everything was able to be repaired. And yeah, it's working out good. So in other words, what
about the lawsuit from the neighbor?
Okay. So that's a great question. So,
good memory, Josh.
Here's how I'm thinking about that. It's an old judgment, right? We did reach out to the people who won the judgment. The neighbor actually sold the house later, so they don't own the house anymore. But they still have the judgment. And we reached out and we said, look, at closing, we'll give you X, right? It was like 20% or whatever it was at the time. They didn't want to take it. They didn't even really want to talk to us. That judgment was renewed. So that judgment, I think 5 years they expire in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Between 5 to 7, something like that. Yeah, that's right.
So they renewed it once. I got to go back and check. I'm just kind of hoping it expires because it was up on the second 5-year thing. So I was hoping it expires. I did talk to the people that own the land. That was a whole thing too, just getting in touch with them. They kind of wanted us to remove the garage, but they weren't pushing either. It's a vacant lot. We offered to buy it. We said, hey, can we buy it? And the guy didn't want to sell it yet. But right, you just gotta be fluid. You're not gonna know all the answers going in. That's kind of the thing. And you have to be able to, I learned this from Mentor, just kind of pivot, right? As things come up, you have to be resourceful and figure things out.
Yeah, Igor, great job, man. Thank you for a deep case study. I'll call it how to buy a house for $5,000. Oh, and have the water company finance some of the purchase. That's another way to think about it.
You're amazing with titles. Yeah.
If you're listening and you heard the keyword quit claim deed and you're not in the real estate game, I would not recommend to ever buy a house off a quit claim deed. I have, I'm sure Igor has, but we have title companies that we work with to run all the background information, because you may think something's a great deal. You do a quit claim deed and you're left holding the bag. So correct, Igor?
100%. Good advice.
And then today, the next pivot question is, that's all about you being an active business owner and an active deal maker. How do people participate in a group like yours, at the We Buy Houses, at Igor, Igor's company? How do they participate if they just want to be passive? What are some ways people do that?
Yeah. So one example, keep in mind, is this business, houses are my inventory, right? So if you're at the supermarket, groceries or whatever, but houses are kind of an expensive inventory, right? We need product, we fix it up, we sell it. So in order to purchase inventory, I will raise money from private lenders. So I do have a number of people who are passive, right? They get first lien position against the house. They get interest paid out every single month. And then we sell the house or we refinance the house, pay them back, and we rinse and repeat. So we have a number of people like that, and that's a great space to be in. I actually also do passive lending from my IRA. I
IRA.
working on a loan right now. Yeah.
By the way, IRA is the optimal way to do that, right? Because you let's say you're charging double-digit yield as the owner of the mortgage, meaning I give you $100,000 and I want money. But if I do it in my own Josh McCallan name, I'm taxed at full income level taxation. But if I put it in my IRA and have them cut a check to you, then hopefully it gets consumed into the tax exempt retirement account. So there won't be that 30-40% taxation.
Yeah. And Igor, how many houses on average are you buying a year?
Between 25 and 30, generally.
That's a pretty good number. Okay.
But you're also selling that many a year, because you're not only buy and hold, you're a flipper.
Yeah, so that includes the total, what we take in. Some of those will be held, some of those will be sold. Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love it. What else we got?
Yeah, I love it. And I just think that was already enough, man. Anybody who listens to the show feels like they can go buy a house this complicated way. But in general, where can people find you, and what can people do if they find you? Like, do you keep a community of people interested in finding out more about investing with you? How can we reach out to you?
I do not keep a community. I'm in, as you guys know, with GoBundance. It's a great community where we get to network with other business owners. But outside of that, I'm just focused on business, family. But anybody can reach me. My email is igor@WeBuyHouses.com. I'm happy to help anybody who's getting started in the business. I've been helped a lot along the way, so I want to help other people. Somebody looking for, to do a deal or something, or be a private lender. Yes, please reach out. And I'm actively, one thing I learned last year. They said, stop chasing deals, start building a business, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm focused on creating processes, systems, and putting the right people in places to actually to build a business that's really sustaining itself really well. So anybody who's got any insights there or wants to talk about that kind of stuff, please reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Igor.
Thank you, Igor. Can't wait to see you in person, buddy.
Cheers.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Damn straight. We just got we got to the end of another great show, and everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.